The time is 1 minute past 2 and you're watching the Tuesday broadcast of Market View right here on Eswatini TV. My name is Notile Tole and welcome to the program. The COMESA Competition Commission has published a guidance letter to airlines operating in the region, addressing some of the common challenges faced by travelers and clarifying consumers' rights. The guidance seeks to strengthen accountability and fair treatment across the aviation industry. Now, this development follows a regional aviation survey conducted by the Commission, which revealed a sharp increase in consumer complaints. As air travel continues to expand in the COMESA region, the new guidelines represent a significant step towards harmonizing airline practices and safeguarding passenger rights. Today on the program, we speak to the director of the COMESA Competition Commission to understand what prompted this move, some of the key elements of the guidance letter, and how the Commission plans to work with domestic authorities to ensure effective implementation. But first, our business news this afternoon. In our business reports, we begin with this. The Minister for Finance, Honourable Nubrakenberg, has unpacked 4 loan bills through which government seeks to raise 2.2 billion emalangeni from the International Bank for Reconstruction and Development, the International Development Association, the African Development Bank and the OPEC Fund. The Minister shared details and highlighted the importance of these loans during a workshop for senators held at the Royal Villas in Eswatini.
We're discussing 4 different bills. There are 2 budget support bills. The first one is from the OPEC Fund for $50 million. The second one is from African Development Bank for $47.5 million. So let me quickly start with these. In fact, let's go through all 4. So the third one is an $8 million loan for the water project, and the fourth one is then the $27 million loan from IDA funding, very cheap funding, or it's almost half grant, if one can see it that way, funding for the youth project. These 2 budget support loans. If you recall, Honourable Senators, and I really appreciate you having passed the $100 million loan bill from the World Bank already. When I was preambling that, when I was talking about that, I did mention to say that there are these other 2 coming. That this year we've got these 3. Got the 100 million from the World Bank, which is passed, which went in, and then we've got these 2. Madam President put it perfectly, is to say that really we have our budget and we have a shortfall in this year's budget. The shortfall in this year's budget is about the $100 million that you have passed already. That was the shortfall in this year's budget. Honourable Senators, unfortunately, we have what we call a stock of arrears. Now, this is shortfalls in the budget from previous years, even 2016, 17, 2015, those years there.
The International Trade Center will be hosting the Indalo exhibition with the support of the European Union, which is showcasing the artistry born from collaboration between Eswatini's micro, small and medium-sized enterprises and European designers. Theophilus Dlamini, MSME sustainability expert at the International Trade Center, speaks more on this exhibition.
The Indalo exhibition is an initiative of the International Trade Center Alliances for Action program, which is funded by the European Union, working together with the Eswatini government. It basically brings together European designers that have collaborated with local artisans in Eswatini and created products that are Eurocentric, yet traditional in our context. So it basically creates bridges for MSMEs in Eswatini to be able to create products that would appeal to the European market, and that would allow them to earn some foreign exchange and also use the opportunities that are presented by the EU SADC Economic Partnership Agreement that we have in place and that Eswatini is actually a signatory of. So we have about 5 local MSMEs that have collaborated with the EU designers. One is Master Artworks, that's focusing on ceramics, and we also have Ngobemnisi, a seasoned artisan that works with soapstone from Malaloja Hills, and we have Tinzaba Master Weavers, as well as Siapambili and Inzabayami. Those are 2 cooperatives from Makunguja. And then the last one is Favorite Designs, who basically just makes furniture, bespoke furniture, which incorporates a bit of local tradition as well as modern aesthetics. The exhibition will be hosted by the Alliance Française behind the Ministry of Education in Mbabane, and would like to invite the general public to come and participate. So on the 25th, we'll actually have some live masterclasses and tea and coffee tasting events, where some of our coffee and tea processing MSMEs are going to be there and serving those treats. And from the 24th until the 6th of November, we'll still have those exhibits in the Alliance Française, and we invite Eswatini to come and actually indulge and engage and get to interact with those local crafts and get to see what is actually happening in the country, and the support that the EU is actually channeling towards our local MSMEs in order to empower them and create bridges for international trade. The Indalo exhibition was first launched in Paris during the Paris Design Week in 2024. We later went on to Denmark, 3 days of design in Copenhagen, 2025, and then we returned again to Paris, Design Week 2025, and now we're actually bringing it home so that we can actually get to interact and get Eswatini to actually get to see the exhibits that have been exhibited globally and made by local artisans in collaboration and partnership with the EU-based designers.
And you're up to date with some of the latest in business. Stick around. Market View continues after this.
Eswatini TV has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Eswatini Communications Commission. We are committed to reporting news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that does not amount to hate speech or the description of gratuitous violence or explicit sex. For any complaints of our programming, please contact us on 2411-9600 or email info@eswatinitv.co.sz. You can also contact the Eswatini Communications Commission on 2406-7000 or write a letter to ECCOM on PO Box 7811 Mbabane. Email address is info@ecom.org.sz.
Welcome back. You are still watching Market View now for our Enterprise Watch segment. The COMESA Competition Commission has released a guidance letter to airlines operating in the region. The guidelines are critical in ensuring that airlines operating within the common market conduct their business practices in a manner that is fair, transparent and compliant with competition laws, of course. To better understand these guidelines and why they need to be followed, we are now joined by Kondwani Kawonga, Manager of Economic Research, Policy and Advocacy at the COMESA Competition Commission, coming through virtually from Malawi. A very good afternoon to you, ma'am, and thank you so much for your time. Perhaps you could just give us context here on what exactly, or some of the concerns that prompted the Commission to develop these new guidelines.
Thank you very much, and greetings from Malawi, the warm heart of Africa. It's a pleasure to be on the program. So just to provide some context in terms of why we had to develop this guidance. The COMESA Competition Commission as a regional competition and consumer protection agency has been operational for quite some time, since 2013. And over time, we've been receiving quite a lot of complaints from passengers, consumers in this market. The complaints have ranged from lost luggage without any form of compensation, cancelled flights without any kind of reasonable explanation to the affected consumers, and sometimes it's just been delays. Delays have happened where passengers go to the airport and they're told the flight has been delayed, and the delays may be even for more than 6 hours. This is usually information that could have been communicated to the passengers before they get to the airport. And some flights have been cancelled, and passengers are only knowing about the cancelled flights when they get to the airport. This is information that could have actually been communicated. And looking at the so many complaints that have been received regarding to flight reschedules, cancelled flights, lost luggage, sometimes even damaged luggage, in some cases where bags are even opened and items are stolen from the bags. Looking at the so many complaints that we've been receiving over time, we actually thought so that the problem was actually widespread. There were actually many complaints that were not even received. Some consumers didn't even know that they could actually raise these issues with the Commerce Competition Commission. And looking at the fact that there were so many complaints that were received, we thought we could do a survey in the market just to be able to establish how many other passengers are affected within the common market. You may understand that COMESA comprises of 21 member states, from the northern part of Africa to the southern part of Africa and the eastern part of Africa as well. So what we had done then is to undertake a survey where we targeted our consumers within the broader common market, the COMESA region, to just understand what issues they were facing when they were traveling with the airlines, and also to understand whether they were being addressed, were they being given redress when they're inconvenienced or when they're not able to travel, when they lose luggage, when the luggage is delayed, were they being assisted by the airlines? And through this survey, we're able to establish that actually the complaints were so widespread, so many complaints that did not even make it to our to us, and it was actually very clear that this problem was widespread and there was need for us to be able to address it more broadly. There were specific complaints that we've handled previously, just individual complaints that of course affect many passengers. We handled those kind of complaints previously, but because of the extent of the spread of the problem, we needed to address it more broadly. So we do understand, maybe just to be clear, that these issues are inevitable in the airline market. We do not expect that the market will work perfectly with no challenges. We do understand these issues will happen. Flights will be cancelled for many reasons. There might be delays for many reasons, or luggage may be delayed for many reasons. And I think most of us have had such challenges. But the issue we had was, how are the consumers assisted thereafter when such challenges arise? Because when a flight is cancelled and the consumers remain stranded at the airport, that is not a good thing, because money would have been paid, a contract would have been entered between a passenger or a consumer with the airline to say, you are going to move me either from Eswatini to Johannesburg. That's a contract that we have entered into and have paid for that service. But so if you're not able to move me from Eswatini to Johannesburg, then you have to be able to give me reasons why you're not able to do that, or offer me options at what else can be done to assist me. But that was not even happening. And this was actually seen from the survey that we had done. We realized that so many complaints, but there was no redress basically given to these consumers to be able to address to assist them.
Can you perhaps walk us through some of the key elements of the guidance letter? Are there any new expectations or standards that now the airlines are expected to uphold? What exactly does this letter entail?
So, and that's a great question, because what does a guidance letter do? What is a guidance letter from our perspective? From our perspective, a guidance letter is there to sort of just provide a guide. It's more like a guideline kind of being given to the airlines to say, in different circumstances, this is how you should be able to treat passengers. And as a guide, airlines are advised to sort of follow the guide. And of course, the question would be, what happens if they don't follow the guide? Currently, because this is just a guidance letter, if the guidance is not followed, then our law, our commercial competition, the commercial competition regulations would then have to apply. If, let's say, for example, a consumer's flight has been cancelled, no form of redress has been provided by the airline, and the airline does not follow the guidance that we've provided in the letter, then for us, our fallback would be to go to the law, that is the commercial competition regulations, because it has very clear provisions on consumer protection and such as unconscionable conduct, that to see whether this airline is engaging in some form of unconscionable conduct. So the fallback for us would be to go to the law and implement the law. So the guidance letter is a soft enforcement tool. And as a soft enforcement tool, it assists the airlines to sort of assist them in their day-to-day operations so that they see to it that they're able to address many of these consumer issues between themselves and the consumer, because the moment our law comes into force, where we say that a complaint has been received and they've not been able to address the complaint, and we apply our law, the consequences then can be sort of costly for them, because us applying the law means that when we find that they've breached our law, we can fine them up to 10% of their turnover that is generated from the common market. So that can be a lot of money as well, which it might be much easier for them to guide the passengers, to assist the passengers that may be affected, as opposed to them being fined 10% of the turnover that they generated from the common market.
Right. My final one to you would be exactly, we understand that airlines operate under diverse regulatory environments. And given this new guidance letter, how does the Commission plan to monitor and evaluate the implementation of these guidelines across the different member states, and also just the collaboration with the domestic regulators or competition commissions, rather?
Yeah, thank you. So, I mean, one thing about the Commercial Competition Commission as a regional enforcement agency is that it has to work very closely with the national competent authorities. So in the case of Eswatini, you're talking about Eswatini Competition Commission, and we actually have working relationships with all the different competent authorities in all the 21 member states. And so even when it comes to when we're doing our research, when we're doing our investigations, when we're doing advocacy work, we collaborate with our competent authorities to ensure that our whatever we're doing, we are coordinated. So in this particular where we've issued a guidance, how do we then monitor? One of the ways is that very soon we'll be sharing this guidance with all the competent authorities in our different member states. And we'll also be intent to share the guidance with the civil aviation authorities so that it's there, so they know that this is something that the Commercial Competition Commission is aware of, and this is how it hopes that consumers could be assisted when they're in all these different situations. And also just to state that the guidance is very clear in terms of what should the airline do when the flight has been delayed, what steps should they take. What should they take when there's a flight has been cancelled, luggage has been delayed, or it's been lost, or instances where there's been an overbooking? You've had, I'm sure there have been many consumers where they go to the airport, they've got a valid flight, they go to the airport and they're told this flight is overbooked, so you can't board. You're basically bumped off the flight. So there have been such cases. So the guidance letter has provided clear guidance on what the airline should do to be able to assist the passengers, because in the past, these consumers have not been assisted in any way. They've been left frustrated with the system. They've been left frustrated with the airlines, different kind of airlines. So the issue is, can you assist them in this way? And we want to share that information with our national consumer or protection authorities, the civil aviation authorities, so that they can then assist to monitor. But in an instance that this is not followed, we still fall back to the law to actually enforce the law. And this is a very this has been an ongoing relationship for us, as well as the national competition authorities, national consumer authorities, or any competent authority in the member states. We work very closely to ensure that these are actually we see to it that such things are actually implemented. And this is something that we know that we'll be able to work closely with them in this particular instance. In so many ways, we go beyond even just enforcement, capacity building, and so on. Those are equally areas that we are able to cooperate and see to it that our goal, our main objective of ensuring that consumers within the common market are actually protected.
Kondwani, that's all the time we had. Thank you so much for your inputs. That was Kondwani Kaunga, Manager of Economic Research, Policy and Advocacy at the COMESA Competition Commission, filling us in rather on a guidance letter to airlines operating in the region. This is Market View. We come back with our in-house economist, Sanele Sibia, right after this.
Eswatini TV has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Eswatini Communications Commission. We are committed to reporting news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that does not amount to hate speech or the description of gratuitous violence or explicit sex. For any complaints of our programming, please contact us on 2411-9600 or email info@eswatinitv.co.za. You can also contact the Eswatini Communications Commission on 2406-7000 or write a letter to ECCOM on PO Box 7811 Mbabane. Email address is info@ecom.org.sz.
When you choose your adventures, you do so with an open heart and a desire for the unexpected. You embark on journeys to discover new worlds full of wonder. You choose a path to awaken your senses, a world to make you look up and realize just how inspiring this life can be. Arrive and awaken your heart. Explore life in ways only thought possible in your dreams. Discover just how far you go to expand your understanding of life's greatest mysteries. There's just one place on this planet with so much to offer. Now is the time for you to have the royal experience.
Welcome back now for our market analysis segment of the show. Economist Sanele Sibia joins us virtually. A very good afternoon to you, Sibia, and thank you so much for your time. With just 6 minutes to go, I'll let you have the floor. What is actually your observation of markets this afternoon?
Good afternoon, Notsile, and good afternoon to the viewer. So what we're seeing with markets, Notsile, is, markets are actually just focusing on the positive news that of, the earnings that we've seen come out, such that when you look at the tech-heavy Nasdaq Composite Index, it actually shot up some 310 points because we've seen the likes of Apple, just posting a very beautiful report. So we're also expecting the likes of Tesla to also post those reports. So now that's what's pushing markets instead of focusing on the bad news that is happening. And also we've seen the escalation between China and the US in terms of those rare earth minerals and those soybeans and that fentanyl drug. So that actually just brought back some calm into the market. So with the US markets performing very well by close yesterday. And then when we come into the European markets, what the European markets are focusing on is again, earnings, with the likes of HSBC leading the pack in London. And then also Paris, there is the bit of that calm there that is happening. But when you go into Germany, we saw a bit of losses, losing some 25 points, which is basically a flat line there, largely being driven by those manufacturing data that we're seeing coming out of, Paris, out of Frankfurt. And then when you move on to, to Asia, what we're seeing there is a bit of optimism around the election of the first female prime minister within Japan. So the markets are just really leaning towards a friendlier stance, a market-friendly stance with her new incoming administration. But when you go into Hong Kong and the Shanghai Composite Index, again, we can see that positive earnings from those techs, coming into play in Shanghai, getting some 52 points, and then there's also a bit of stimulus there within China, and then the calming of those tensions also now contributes to what we're seeing happening in China. And as we said yesterday, the Shanghai Composite Index is really heading for that 4,000 mark. It seems it's on steam and it's rolling towards that mark. And same thing when you look at what's happening within Hong Kong, we're seeing again the Hang Seng, just maintaining those pre-COVID levels there at 26,000 and getting some 168 points, largely driven by happenings within Asia and also within the mainland China, and the very stellar performance of those tech stocks within the US market. So when we come into South Africa, what has happened today? The JSE has actually lost some 1,152 points, largely driven by that profit taking amongst the gold traders. So we've seen the bullion today coming down a bit. So when we are looking into the Eswatini Stock Exchange, there hasn't been any movement there. But again, as we already mentioned, along the gold bullion there, we've seen a bit of a drawback there, largely driven by profit taking. So we're seeing traders taking their profits right now because gold has been doing very well, but not to say the fundamentals have changed. And then Brent crude oil there, amid those oversupply worries, it still remains at that 61 level. And then when we move on into our currencies, we can see that the Lilangeni to the dollar has actually lost a bit of ground. The euro to the Lilangeni, again, we've lost a bit of ground there, only just improving a bit against the Japanese yen. So what we're seeing there, Notsile, is an issue to do with, the loss of value in gold, which we know that our currency is largely anchored on the South African Stock Exchange. And when we see a bit of losses there, then evidently we do expect our currency to depreciate a bit. And the normalization of ties within the global economy, more especially between China and the US, somehow improved the value of the dollar, and we're seeing a bit of that. But overall, what we're seeing is markets are not that much worried about the shutdown in the US. And overall, we do expect the Bureau of Labor Statistics to release that jobs data, which was expected due last week Friday. So markets are really just focusing on earnings right now. Thank you, Natalie.
Thank you very much, Sibia. Thank you so much for your time. That was economist Sanele Sibia chiming in on some of the latest making the day's trade. And speaking of that data that he just talked about, it's actually expected to come out now on Friday, if it will come out at all, seeing as the U.S. government shutdown is entering its 21st day actually today. Otherwise, this has been Market View. Thank you so much for your time. Until the next edition, take care.